Greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to the start of another week on the channel, and we're going to start off with part 3 of the Alexis Korner story. And we've now reached a little band that he put together called CCS, which actually means a Collective Consciousness Society. That would have been a mouthful, so no wonder they shortened it just to CCS. Now, this was formed in 1970 by John Cameron and Mickey Most. Yes, Mickey Most. It was a lot of session musicians, and the people that have been in this band that played on their albums are people like Peter Thorpe, who he worked with later on. Alan Parker's on here, Harold McNair, Herbie Flowers, Roger Coultham, Barry Morgan, Dan Lusher, Bill Gerard. Some of these musicians are in a band called Blue Mink. Remember Bannerman and Melting Pot? Yeah, they're on here. That's where Herbie Flowers comes from. Now, they only released 3 albums, but they are very good albums. I love these albums. So, very short one today, but it's always worth mentioning because there's some great songs on these tracks. A lot of covers, but the covers are always good. So, coming in at number 3, we have the second album. It's called CCS. Now, it's the same as the debut, but this is often called CSS2, just to avoid that confusion. But you cannot find the CSS2 on any cover. So the band for this one was Alexis Korner on guitar and vocals, Peter Thorpe on vocals, Herbie Flowers on bass, Tony Card the drums, Howard Beckett, Henry Lowther on trumpet, Harold McNair on the woodwinds. Now, the first track is a track called Brother, which is a track written by Alexis himself. It's really good. It's got that big band jazzy sound. Some great drumming here from Tony Carr, and I like Peter's vocals on this track as well. Then we get a version of Led Zeppelin's Black Dog. Great bass line on this from Herbie. Oh, the horns, very, very different, of course, from the original, but it is really good. I do like this. Then they do I Want You Back, which was done by the Corporation, but it's a Jackson 5 number. It doesn't quite sound right without Michael Jackson singing on it though, so that's why I don't think. Then we have this track called Running Out of Sky, Skydiver. Very jazzy blues fusion, some great drumming on here, some great guitar from Alexis Korner. The bass is fantastic as ever from Herbie Flowers. Then we get a little medley called A Whole Lot of Rock and Roll. Now, the tracks they do is School Day, Long Tall Sally, and a little bit of Whole Lot of Love. Big brass band thing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that. Then on the second side we get Chaos, Can't We Ever Get It Back, which is an Alexis Korner thing. Bit of a storytelling here. I love this track, and I love Alexis Korner's voice. I remember this from listening to him on the radio. He's got a great voice for jazzy blues sort of sound. It's an amazing track. I do love it. Then we have This Is My Life, written by Peter Thorpe. There's just something about these albums. It's just big brass and guitar that work really well. Then we have a track called Misunderstood. It's got that distinctive Herbie Flowers bass line. You know it's Herbie when you play it. He's just one of the greatest bass players, and very underrated. I think he is played on so many great songs. I mean, he was in Sky, he was the bass on War of the Worlds. It's just a great track. Maggie's song, nothing to do with Rod Stewart. It's a lovely track, some nice piano on here, some great vocals from Peter. Then the last track is called City. Great vocal on here. So a great blues jazz song. Fantastic. This is a very good album. There's not one bad track on it. Great covers and original songs. An all-round album, which I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay then, coming in at number 2, we have their third and final album, and it's called The Best Band in the Land, and it came out in 1973. On here is Alexis Korner, Peter Thorup, James Cameron on electric piano, Alan Parker on guitars as well, Herbie Flowers on the bass, Spike Heatley on string bass, Tony Carr, Barry Morgan do the drums, with Jim Lawless and Bill Lesage doing some percussion, Harold Beckett, Henry Lowther, Greg Bowen, Tony Fisher, Les Condon and Kenny Whelan supply the trumpets, Dan Lusher, John Marshall, Bill Perrin and Bill Gerald do the trombone, Neil Saunders is on horns, and then saxophones, Harold McNair, Tony Coe, Peter King, Danny Moss, Bob Efford and Ron Ross. Very good lineup. The first track on this one's called The Band Played the Boogie, the best track on here. It's my second favourite track by CCS. I just love it. You start the great bass, the piano comes in, absolutely brilliant. Then they do a cover of Donovan's Wild Witch Lady. I love this song anyway, but this one's got a little bit more depth. It's just got more groove to it. Then probably one of the only tracks I don't like by CCS, and it's a cover of Lola, the Great King song. I just don't like this at all. It's not a very good version. Then we get a track called Primitive Love. Now this is written by two certain gentlemen renowned for the 70s, Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin. Yes, you can tell it is. It's got that bubblegum pop feel to it, but it's done in the bluesy thing, and it's Alexis singing on it, and it's pretty good. I like that track. 100 Highways, great little track, written by John Cameron. It reminds me of a lot of it could have been in a 1970s American cop show, that sort of sound. It's got a great bass line from Herbie Flowers on that. Then they do a version of Shaking All Over. It's a little bit different to the Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, of course, but I like it. The horns are really good, and they do a really good version of it. Memphis, another good track. Funky sound, some great guitar work here on this one. Pretty cool. Then they do a version of Sunshine of Your Love. Really different to the Cream version, but it is good. It's a bit more groovy and funky, soulful, but it's a great version of it. I like that. Our Man in London, very similar to the start of Bannerman by Blue Mink. This is pretty good. Great little track. Cannonball Sheep, another great track, my second favourite off this album. Starts off with one of them great Herbie Flowers legendary bass lines, and then we get this rocky blues sound, absolutely terrific. Another sterling album, great covers on here apart from the one, but the rest of the album is great. It's just top to bottom jazz, blues, soul, fantastic album. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.6. So the number one is the debut album, CCS. But there is some people say, to avoid confusion of the second name, this is often called Whole Lot of Love. I've never heard it called Whole Lot of Love. I think it was called Boom in the UK. Boom Boom. Where do people get this? It's always been CCS. But there you go. So on here, Alexis Korner and Peter Thorup on vocals, Alan Parker on guitars, Spike Heatley and Herbie Flower do the bass, Barry Morgan, Tony Carr on the drums, and the percussion, Bill Lesage and Jim Lawless again. Got the saxophones and pianos, John Cameron on the piano, Bob Bob Efford and Johnny Moss, Harold McNair, Ron Ross and Tony Coe on saxophones. The horns, the trumpets are Greg Bowen, Howard Beckett, Henry Lowther again, Kenny Wheeler, Les Condon, Tony Fisher. Trombone, Bill Gelhard, Brian Perrin, Don Lush and John Marshall. Opens up with the great Boom Boom from John Lee Hooker. A great version of this, one of my favourite blues tracks, and they do a killer version of it. Absolutely brilliant. Then they do I Can't Get No Satisfaction, the great Rolling Stones track. Different version to the Stones, of course, but it's really good. It's got this big brown brass band sound, the drumming's good, a bit of bongos. Fantastic track. Waiting Song, this is a Peter Thurrope song. This reminds me of No Quarter, that great bit in No Quarter that John Paul Jones does on the keyboards. Great bass line on here. It's definitely Herbie Flowers. I know his sound. Then we have Looking for Fun. Great bass line again. Love the horns on that big brass production. Nice guitars. Great track. And then we get A Whole Lot of Love. Now, for a certain age group in this country, this track was the theme for the Top of the Pops. It's killer. It's the best track on here. It's the most famous, I wouldn't say famous, the most recognisable track by CCS. Their version of this is brilliant, absolutely killer, and it brings back a lot of memories of watching Top of the Pops as a young lad. Then we have Living in the Past, which is different. It's done in a 5/4 time signature, so it's not the Jethro Tull style. It's more of a jazzy. And does it work? Yes. They've made it into this jazz thing. It's absolutely brilliant version. Then we have an original track called Sunrise. I love this. Great bass line, bluesy sort of sound. Fantastic track from Alexis Korner. Don Cantos. I like how this builds up. It's very slow, and then all of a sudden you get into this. The big band comes in. The bongos is good on this. Fantastic track. Wade in Water, bluesy sort of thing. Some great guitars in here from Alan Parker. Great little jazz number. Fantastic track. Excuse me. Love this album. I play it a lot, and I just love Whole Lot of Love. It's probably got some of the best covers they ever did. I just think it's a really good album. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Sorry about the voice. Ugh. Anyway, there we go. There's part 3. Now part 4 next week. We're going to look at the solo albums of Alexis Korner, which there's some pretty good ones in there. So that's all for next week. I'll be back later with a classic album. We're going to look at Miles Davis's Secrets from Spain. In the meantime, I'm going to go and sort my throat out. So I will see you later. Bye for now.